Welcome in. We are really glad you're joining us for today's deep dive.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here.
Now, normally when we sit down to analyze a stack of sources, we might be looking at a sprawling new macro trend in systems architecture.
Right, or maybe dissecting a massive piece of investigative journalism.
Exactly. But today, our mission is quite different. We're going to look at one highly specific piece of technical writing.
And we aren't just reading it to learn a new coding paradigm, though.
No, not at all. We're going to use this single document as a window into the fascinating, eclectic mind of a prolific, lifelong learner.
It really is a fantastic exercise when you explore a niche digital artifact like this. I mean, it offers a masterclass in how we process complex information.
It really does.
Looking at someone's 15-year digital footprint gives us a totally different perspective than reading a polished corporate tech article.
Oh, 100%.
We are seeing the raw, unedited process of discovery, and that shows us the immense compounding value of documenting our tinkering over time.
So let me introduce you to our source material for today. We are looking at a blog post from a site called keynm.org.
Okay.
It was published on March 7th, 2026 by a writer named Ang, who humbly describes himself as an old software plumber.
I love that phrase.
Right. And the title of this post is Notes on Haskell Programming, Part 76, Exploring Parsing with ApplicativeDo Extension.
I suspect anyone who has worked in functional programming just felt a slight spike in their heart rate hearing that.
Stick with us, because the true insight for you today won't just be about parsing command line arguments in Haskell.
Definitely not.
It's going to be about the incredible juxtaposition of high-level functional programming, beta fish spawning logs, and the iterative secrets of gardening. All of this living side by side on one massive, long-running blog.
We are essentially seeing someone thinking out loud across multiple disciplines, and the technical problem he tackles in this specific post is a perfect microcosm of how humans interact with rigid systems.
Okay, let's unpack this. Ang is working in Haskell, and he's trying to solve a common but fundamental problem. Right.
How to handle different properties of arguments in his code. Basically, when a user types a command into a program, how does the application cleanly parse and validate all the little flags, the options, and the inputs the user attached to that command?
And to do this, he relies on a well-known library called optparse-applicative.
Yes.
For those familiar with Haskell, optparse-applicative is brilliant because it leverages the applicative functor pattern.
Which sounds incredibly dense.
It is, a bit. But it essentially allows you to declare command line parsers that don't depend on the results of previous computations. Because the structure is static, the library can do things like automatically generate beautiful help text for your command line interface.
Right, but the syntax required to achieve this purity involves a heavy reliance on operators like fap and apply.
Yeah, often represented by the operators that look like angle brackets and asterisks.
And Ang actually refers to this as an alphabet soup of operators.
That's a very accurate description. It looks less like a sequence of instructions and more like a dense algebraic equation. You are building up a parser structure simultaneously, rather than executing commands step by step.
Which brings us to Ang's big discovery for his own workflow.
Exactly. He realizes that instead of writing his code in that native, mathematically pure applicative style, he can rewrite his parser using a do block.
And do notation in Haskell is typically reserved for monads, where operations happen sequentially. You know, where step B genuinely depends on the outcome of step A.
But to make this work for his parser, Ang has to go out of his way to enable a special compiler extension called ApplicativeDo.
Right.
To put this into a broader systems perspective for you listening, imagine you are flying a commercial jet.
Okay, I like this.
The pure applicative approach is like using the raw telemetry data and manipulating the wing flaps and thrust directly.
It's pure simultaneous structural control.
Exactly. But turning on the ApplicativeDo extension is like enabling the autopilot interface. You are still flying the exact same plane, but you're giving it sequential imperative commands.
Because human brains are simply better at top-to-bottom, step-by-step processing.
Right. And the extension takes those sequential commands and translates or desugars them back into the simultaneous flap adjustments the plane actually needs.
What's fascinating here is the core contradiction Ang highlights in his own code.
Yeah.
He admits that this top-to-bottom do notation approach is much friendlier to read, but he also points out that relying on this friendly workaround inherently subverts the core design philosophy of the optparse-applicative library itself.
Because the library was specifically built to leverage that powerful structural applicative style.
Exactly. Furthermore, he has to tell the Glasgow Haskell compiler to turn on a non-default language extension just to facilitate his preferred reading style.
He goes through all this extra configuration effort just to make the tool look like something it wasn't originally designed to be.
Yes.
He's bending the environment to his comfort zone. And the great part is that he's totally self-aware about the irony of it.
Yeah.
He is choosing cognitive comfort over architectural purity.
I would argue it's actually a bit deeper than just a preference for clarity, though.
How so?
Ang isn't just ignoring the native syntax. He's actively incurring technical debt by relying on a compiler extension so he doesn't have to constantly parse the alphabet soup in his head.
I see.
It's a calculated trade-off. For you listening, think about the psychology of tool adoption in your own stack or your own life. We crave the mathematical rigor and power of complex frameworks, but we inevitably bend them, hack them, or wrap them in familiar interfaces because our working memory has limits.
That makes total sense.
Ang documents this tension perfectly. He isn't claiming one way is objectively superior in a vacuum. He is observing his own practical limitations and adapting the system to fit the human rather than forcing the human to fit the system.
Which is the perfect transition to the author himself. Let's zoom out from the GHC compiler extensions for a second and look at the ethos of the man writing the code.
Let's do it.
We mentioned earlier that Ang calls himself an old software plumber, and that phrase carries a lot of weight in our industry.
It really does.
He isn't claiming to be a tech visionary disrupting the paradigm. He's a plumber. He's in the digital trenches, night long, tinkering with the hidden pipes that keep the internet from collapsing.
Specifically, he notes his dedication to free, libre, and open source software, or FLOSS.
Right.
That self-identification is crucial. The software plumber mentality is relentlessly practical. If a pipe is leaking, you patch it. If a piece of code is unreadable to your future self 6 months from now, you wrap it in an ApplicativeDo block. Ideological purity be damned.
I think we often forget that the modern internet is almost entirely held together by these silent plumbers. We glorify the founders and the CEOs.
Of course.
But the actual load-bearing infrastructure of the web, the routing protocols, the encryption libraries, the server kernels, they are maintained by people like Ang who are quietly debugging and logging their findings on personal blogs late at night.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we can see exactly what motivates that kind of thankless work.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Ang explicitly lists 4 organizations that he supports in the Day Support section of his site: the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Free Software Foundation, the Tor Project, and Wikipedia.
That list of organizations is effectively a manifesto for the open web philosophy. These are the foundational pillars of a free, privacy-respecting, and collaborative internet.
Completely.
You have the EFF, fighting for digital civil liberties and protecting developers in court. You have the Free Software Foundation, championing the fundamental right of users to study, modify, and share the code that runs their lives.
And you have Tor protecting anonymity against mass surveillance.
Exactly. And then Wikipedia, the ultimate testament to decentralized, freely accessible human knowledge.
Looking at that list tells you that Ang views the internet as a vital public utility. He believes information should be free, accessible, and meticulously documented. Writing an entry like Notes on Haskell Programming Part 76 isn't just a personal reference document. It is an act of contributing to the global commons. He is leaving breadcrumbs for the next software plumber who encounters the exact same parsing error.
But the reality of contributing to the global commons is that it can be incredibly taxing, which brings us to a delightful contrast on his site.
Yes.
Right below his support for these grand, world-changing organizations, he includes a wonderfully grounded, pragmatic disclaimer. It's the ultimate defense mechanism of a veteran internet denizen.
It reads, "Opinions expressed here are my own and do not represent the views of my current or past employers. All content provided in this blog is for informational purposes only. I cannot guarantee the accuracy or completeness and will accept no liability for any loss or damage incurred."
It is basically him saying, I believe in the utopian vision of free knowledge and a collaborative web. But if my Haskell workaround crashes your production server, you are on your own.
It is the perfect snapshot of someone who has survived the open source ecosystem.
Oh, absolutely.
Anyone who has maintained a popular repository knows the burnout that comes from entitled users demanding free tech support. You learn to share your knowledge freely, but you also learn to build rigid boundaries to protect your own sanity.
Right.
It's an ethos that balances high-minded idealism with the boots-on-the-ground reality of software liability.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Up until now, we've analyzed a very dedicated, principled, and highly technical software developer. But when you step back and look at the timeline of qianmeng.org, a completely different picture emerges.
Yeah, the sheer volume of output is what caught my attention too.
I want to walk you through some statistics, and I want you listening to consider the sheer discipline required to generate these numbers.
The consistency is difficult to wrap your head around at first glance.
The blog starts back in 2011 with just 26 posts for the entire year.
A modest, normal start.
Right. He keeps at it, and by 2019, he hits 278 posts in a year. That's a very solid, almost daily blogging hammer.
Impressive on its own.
But from 2022 to 2025, Ang goes into hyperdrive. In 2022, he published exactly 730 posts. In 2023, another 730 posts. In 2024, 732 posts, accounting for the leap year. And in 2025, another 730 posts.
For those of you doing the math, that is exactly 2 posts a day, every single day for 4 consecutive years.
Weekends, holidays, sick days.
2 documented observations a day without fail.
It's an unbelievable level of dedication. You have to ask, what on earth is he writing about twice a day for years on end?
Well, looking at the sidebars and the recent posts, he organizes his site into these ongoing series titled Notes on Various Subjects.
And the mix of passions is incredibly broad. On the one hand, you have the highly technical logs. There are notes on Go programming, Rust, Elixir and Erlang, Python, networking, and AI.
All of which represent rigorous, logical, systems-oriented domains.
But right alongside is Haskell debugging. You find the wonderfully terrestrial. You find notes on gardening, which, by the way, is up to part 827. You find notes on fish keeping, up to part 205. There are notes on dieting, notes on home improvement, and notes on guitar. He maintains highly detailed logs dedicated specifically to betta spawn logs alongside miscellaneous fishes spawn logs.
The juxtaposition shatters the stereotype of the hyper-focused, single-minded programmer living solely in the digital realm.
To give you a real sense of the scope here, let's read off some of the specific recent blog post titles from the single month of March 2026. Keep in mind, these are all published within days or hours of each other.
Okay.
He jumps from a post titled Analyzing Wi-Fi 7 directly to a post titled The Gelatinous Pear.
Wow.
Then he moves to leggy seedlings again, followed by discovering the Malaysian blackwood, then right back to source control with switching branches, and back to the dirt with my bougainvillea journey.
It might sound chaotic to jump from Wi-Fi 7 packet analysis to gelatinous pears, but if you look closer, there is a very strong unifying methodology running through all of this.
What do you mean?
What this massive archive demonstrates to you is that technical minds are rarely only technical. The meticulous analytical muscle that Ang uses to track how a GHC compiler extension desugars ApplicativeDo syntax is the exact same mental muscle he uses to track adapting water parameters for his fish.
Or maximizing propagation for his bougainvillea.
Precisely. The methodology is identical. Gardening is essentially just wet programming.
Wet programming. I love that.
You are setting up an environment, feeding it inputs like nitrogen, water, and sunlight, and waiting to see if it compiles into a healthy plant, or if it throws a biological error and gives you leggy seedlings.
And when it throws that error, you don't just guess at the solution. You isolate the variables.
Yes. In software, you isolate a function to find a memory leak. In an aquarium, you isolate the pH levels or the nitrate concentration to understand why a betta spawn failed.
It's all about observing complex interconnected systems, tweaking one single variable at a time, and rigorously documenting the results for future reference.
The blog isn't a collection of disparate hobbies. It is a unified testament to the scientific method applied to everyday life. The medium changes, from digital code to soil to water, but the fundamental process of learning and iterating remains exactly the same.
So what does this all mean? We started today by looking at a very specific syntactic workaround for parsing command line arguments in Haskell. And we ended up exploring a massive 15-year archive of one man's journey through software infrastructure, open web philosophy, gardening, and fish breeding.
It's quite a ride.
The ultimate takeaway here is that whether you are navigating the cryptic alphabet soup of coding operators, trying to debug those frustrating leggy seedlings on your windowsill, or carefully tracking the water parameters of your aquarium, the ultimate life hack is simply showing up.
Yeah.
It's about paying attention to the systems around you, tinkering with them deliberately, and most importantly, keeping a record of what you learn. Ang's blog is proof that ordinary daily observations, when compounded over 15 years, turn into a breathtaking library of human curiosity.
This raises an important question for you to consider as we wrap up today.
Yeah, let's hear it.
We discussed the software plumber ethos. The idea that the modern digital world relies on individuals quietly fixing, documenting, and maintaining the hidden pipes of the internet.
Right.
If you look at the sheer scale of Eng's 800-part logs and his meticulous open-source contributions, you have to wonder about the fragility of our current ecosystem. If these veteran silent plumbers simply stopped showing up tomorrow, if they stopped writing their daily logs, stopped answering questions on obscure forums, and stopped patching the open-source libraries we all take for granted, how much of our heavily abstracted autopilot digital world would silently break?
It is a sobering thought, and a brilliant reminder of why these meticulous daily documentarians are so incredibly valuable to all of us.
Truly.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of qianmeng.org. We hope it sparks some ideas for how you view the complex systems in your own life. Until next time, keep exploring, keep documenting, and stay curious.